right? In case of SQL, if you want to load any data into SQL, you should have a schema before. First you'll write a create statement and the table name. This is nothing but a schema, and later you will insert the data into tables by using insert commands. What does it mean? What does it mean? SQL is schema on write. Schema on write. SQL is schema on write. Why before writing a data into database only, you have to define the schema. That is schema on write. When it comes to Hadoop, you will blindly write the data. Whatever the data you want to write, you will just write the data using Hadoop commands. HDFS put or HDFS, whatever the command. No, whatever the command you do, like Hadoop put, Hadoop, whatever the command you want to do, you'll just do the command using, you'll just load the data. You don't worry whether you never do specify any schema here. You have some text file, you're just loading into a specific folder. We never follow any schema in while loading the data into HDFS. Yes or no? But while processing the data in HDFS, you have to define schema. So I have some data. Let's assume that I have some employee data in HDFS. I have something called employee data. It's a file. Let's say employee ID, employee name, salary, department. Like this I have. Yes, ID, name, sal, department. These values are there. These values are there in the file. These values are there in the file. Now, while loading the data into HDFS, we never follow any schema. We just use the command Hadoop fs. Yes or no? Hadoop fs hyphen put, and you'll give the slash employee from the local and slash HDFS, whatever the location you'll give the location. So do you define any schema here with the time of loading? No. But when I want to process this, I want to department wise, I want the employees. So I want to process this data. So it means that I'm nothing but I'm processing the data here. So while you are processing the data, while you are writing a Mapreduce query, or while you are writing a Mapreduce code, you will define schema. You will tell to your Mapreduce program, or you will tell to your whatever the tool you are using, like a Hive or a Pig or whatever the tool you are using, you will tell this is type input, what type of input it is. You will define input format. This input format is nothing but a schema. Now you guys understand, guys? I hope everyone is understand about this. Please guys, if you didn't understand, please tell me. This is a little important. Yeah. So Hadoop is schema on read. SQL is schema on write. Your Hadoop is schema on read. So while you want to read, while you want to process, then only you will specify the schema. Okay. So whenever you are going to write data into HDFS, you never follow schema. But when you want to process the same data, we should specify what type of data it is. How I have to process it. That is called a schema. We need to specify the schema for while processing the data. The schemas are nothing but what type of data it is, what is the key, what is the value. We need to process it. Input format. What is it? What it is, guys? Input format. Input format plays where the no, it's a very important role in the Mapreduce. Okay, there are set of input formats. Text input format, text input format. So for the text files, for the text files, for the text type of files, okay, key value input format, key value input format, key value input format. So you are getting a data in the key value format. You are getting the data such a way that, look at guys here, look at here. So I'm getting data here. So let me take a simple example for key value pair. So command and it's a description. Let's say command and it's a description. Now I'm getting put command tab. It's a tab. Actually here it is not showing your tab. Put command tab. It is used to, and we will write some description here. Next, get command tab. So this is first tab separated, guys. Actually it is not showing the tab separated. Let's say it is like that. A tab, then some information. So like hyphen mv tab, 4 spaces, then some information. The data is like this, guys. So some value here, then 4 spaces, this. You have data like this. You have data like this. Means there is a first, there is one column, then tab separated. There is a very big description or some information is there. So this type of data I want to process. This type of data I want to process. Correct. It is a looks like a text only, but here this put, get, these are looks like a keys. This key is associated with this description. This key is associated with this description. This get is a key and associated with some description. Copy from local is a key, it's associated with some description. Hyphen mv is a key, it's associated with some description. So when you have these kind of key value pair type of data, there is a key which is associated with some value. So then we have something called key value input format. Key value input format, guys. All these detail, we'll see all these things in very detailedly later point of time. For time being, you just need to understand text input format, because we are going to show some example in text input format. The third one is sequence file input format. Sequence file input format. And not only this, there are so many. These are the very well known. There is something called db input format. You're connecting to RDBMS, you're getting the data from the RDBMS to your Mapreduce. So we'll go with the DB input format. There are n-line input format, n-line input format, multiple input format, multiple input format, combined input file format, sequence file as a text input format, sequence file as a binary input format. So there are different kind of input file formats, but for time being, you just understand. For time being, you just understand. You try to understand, because we will be seeing some example. We'll be seeing some example on text input format. Text input format. Rest of the things I will explain you. So anyway, we have a separate class for the input formats. We'll see the detail, all the input formats. First, you try to understand text input format. What are these input formats? These input formats tells you how to process the data. These input formats tells you how to process the data. Let's tell you. So we know that, guys, we know that mapper will take a k1 v1. K1 v1 means key in, value in, and it gives output as Emit, it will emit as what is this? It will take input as a key in value in. It means input key input value. Key in value in means it is a input key input value. It is emit. It is emit key out, comma value out. So reducer also takes key in value in, and it emits key out value out. It means your whole Mapreduce framework, your mapper and reducers works based on the key value pairs. So what is this key in? What is this key in? What is this value in? And what is output? Who will divide this key value pairs? Why will get the key value pairs? From where I'll get the key value pairs? If it is a method, someone has to tell it is a key, someone has to tell it is a value. Who will tell all these things? We are going to see now. We are going to see now. If you this point you understand, your Mapreduce framework works based on the key value pairs. Whatever the data it comes to your Mapreduce framework, your Mapreduce framework will divide the data into key value pairs. That this point you guys understand? It will take the key value pairs and it will give the key value pairs as output. It can be your mapper phase, it can be your reduce phase. Even your reducer also will take the key value pair and the final output will give us a key value pair. Guys, I'm looking for answers from you. Akash, Anil, Anila, Debashish, Masudan, Sachin. Okay, Sachin might not understand. I think he's from different. Srikanth.
Ravi, one doubt.
Hmm.
See, you are telling map key value. That means the whole data is stored in a map in the form of key value pairs, if my understanding is correct, right?
No, it will not store. Okay, it is not store in the map. So don't compare your map is nothing but don't compare like your map is your hash map or hash table or whatever it is. Don't assume like that. Here the map is a function.
Okay.
It's a mapper. It's a map and reduce. It's a map and reduce. What is a map phase? It will map each data block with your map logic.
Okay.
You guys remember this? One second, let me go back. Do you remember this one? You have a blocks and the blocks will be
Yeah,
calculated some input format input splits. It means then record reader. Each input split is nothing but it's your mapper function is launching. Your mapper function is launching. Do you guys remember this? Map means it is
yes, Ravi,
mapping.
I remember it.
Yeah, your mapper
Means
is,
I was just
yeah, go ahead Anila.
confused. That's it.
No, here this mapper phase is nothing but your map method. If you see this map method, your mapper is mapping with what? Your mapper is mapping but ideally with one block. It's a mapping. It's mapping with the data. That's why first they'll map your map logic with the mapper. They will emit the data, then they reduce. That's why they have named it as a map and reduce. First, they will map your logic with a specific block. Actually, it is not a specific block. It is a specific input split. Okay, they map your map logic with a specific input. Then they'll start process the data. Then they start process the data. After processing the data, they will emit some output here. Some output will come here. That output will go to short and shuffle. That output will go to short and shuffle. Finally, it will go to reducer, and reducer will give a final output. Correct? So while it is mapping, how it will map? While it is mapping, how it will map? So mapping is nothing but the processing a chunk of data at the mapper phase. So it has something called map method in the mapper class. It has something called map method in the mapper class. You guys understand this, right? I hope we have seen all these things, like your data is mapped with map logic, and it is give some output. That output will go to some sort and shuffle phase, then reducer. The final reducer will give some final output, right? So whenever it is taking the data to a map method, whenever the data is going to process in the map method, whenever the data is going to process in the map method, it will take a key value pair. This is the key in is one parameter, key value in is one parameter to a map function. Who will give this key value pairs? Who will give this key value pairs? Your record reader. Yes or no?
Yes.
What is the record reader, guys?
On the input format, it will record it will read certain data based on the input text format and give to the mapper.
Okay, so your data will be stored into the blocks. So when you load the data into HDFS, it will be divided into blocks. So when you are processing the data, you will give the path of that file. Then what will happen? So based on the input format, it will create the input splits. It will create the input splits. Based on the input splits, record reader will be created. Record reader tells that how to read the data from the input split. How to read the data from the input split. How to read the data from the input split. After reading the data from the input split, it will hand over to the map function. Map function will take the key value pair and it will start processing the data. I don't know whether you guys are clear about it or not. I request you guys go through the video one more time. Let me show that videos. This video I already uploaded, which is Mapreduce input split record reader and code. Record reader and code. I have shown you here the Thursday. This was Thursday class. This was the Thursday class. Okay, please go through that video to understand what is the record reader, what is the input split properly. Okay, so let me jump into the code. If you guys remember, not this. We have started writing some. Let me explain it from the code. I think that will make you understand easily. Okay, so 1 second. I'll explain each and every point here. Let me tell you what happened. Okay, let's look at here, guys. This is my class, which is a mapper class, which is my mapper class. I'm writing mapper, extending mapper, map word count mapper, extending mapper. What it is expecting? Key K1 V1. The final output it will give K2 V2. If you look at your map method in the mapper class, it is taking the key, it's taking the value, and context has the parameters. Context has the parameters, and what it is giving as an output. In between the logic, you don't worry. What it is giving output? Again, it's a key, it's a value. Again, it's a key and a value. What does it mean? Your mapper phase, your map method will take key value pair. Your map method will take key comma value, and it will emit the output as a key value. Whatever the logic you're writing here, it is no matter. That's up to you. What is it? Depends on the logic, depends on the requirement. You will write the logic. Your map method will take the key and value as a parameter, and it will emit as a key and value as an output from the mapper phase. And reduce also will take key input, value input, and it will give the final output as the key value. So what does it mean? Your map method will takes the key value pairs and gives the key value pairs. Your reduce method takes the key value pairs and gives the key value pairs. Do you guys understand this? Do you guys understand this?
Yes.
Akash, Anila, Debashish, Masood and Raghu and others?
Yes.
Yes.
Understand or not? I think still people have a doubt. If you guys have a doubt, please clarify now yourself.
Understood, Vira.
So then how the key values are getting divided? Sachin, not Sachin, Suman, do you understand? I think it's not it.
No.
Suman?
Yes, it's a 1-2 minute delay, I think.
For you, do you have a delay? Okay.
Hello?
Do you have a delay in the my screen?
Yeah, 5 seconds, I think.
Okay. I'll be little slow. Then while sharing the screen, while you're writing something, I'll be little slow. Okay? I'll show you little screen. So okay, let me explain the same thing with an example, guys. Then you can easily understand. Yeah. Let me take this example. Let me take this example. I have some data here. It's a text file. Let's assume that this is a text file. I'm also taking the same example where we'll see most of the books and online, which is a word count. Which is the word count. Which is the word count. Let's say this is the text. This is the text. This is the text. Now I want to find out in this text. Each word how many times is repeated. I want to find something in this text. Each word how many times it is repeated. Understand? So how many times hi came, how many times all came, how many times how came. So I want to find out the word count. Okay, this is what type of data it is? What type of data it is? Text type. So this data is loaded into HDFS. This data is there in a HDFS slash sample .txt. Now I want to process this data. Okay, I want to process this data. So if it is a text type of data, what is the input format I have to take? What is the input format I have to take?
Text input format.
Okay, text input format. Text input format. Text input format. If I take the text input format, as I said, the text input format has, as I said, something called will divide, it will have a, it knows what is its key and also it knows what is its value. The whole data will be divided into key value pair. How it will divide? Who will divide it? It will be divided by your record reader. Your record reader. Based on the input format, there will be input splits will be created. That you understand? There will be, based on input formats, the input splits will be created. Yes or no? The mapper will Mapreduce will map method will be how many maps your mappers will be processed based on the number of input splits. That's correct or not? Correct. So in this input, whatever the input you are given here, that input, whatever the input you have given here, let's assume that it's only two blocks. Only two blocks. So whatever the input you have given here, that input will be in we divided the input splits will be calculated. What is the input split, guys? It's a logical representation of, it is a logical representation of a chunk of data or a piece of data which will be processed by single mapper. Input split is nothing but a logical representation of a chunk of data which will be processed by single mapper. Correct? What it will do? It will tells you from where to start reading the data for one mapper, from where to start reading the data or processing the data to where to I need to finish it. Where to start, where to finish. That's the input split. The responsibility of the input split is from where to start processing, where to end processing by one mapper. And this is processed by mapper 1. And this will process by another mapper 2, because two blocks, because two input splits. What is the responsibility of the input split? The responsibility of input split will tells you where to start processing the data and where to end processing the data. That is the responsibility of input split. And there is something called record reader. What is the record reader will do? The record reader tells you how to read the input split. So now you have a block. Now you know the one mapper has to process from the zero offset. One mapper has to process from the zero offset, the zeroth position, until it is finishes the block or whatever is safe. But how to read it? Who will tell how to read? Your record reader will tell it. So the record reader, the name itself is saying that the record reader tells you how to read the data. So record reader, if it is a text input format, your input split is nothing equal to blocks. Input split is almost equal to block size. And record reader is line record reader. What is the record reader for the text input format? Guys, I have shown you this in the source code last class. If you have a text input file format, what is your record reader? Line record reader, right? What line record reader will do? It will read the data record wise. What is the record? Record is nothing but one line where still it will start from the starting position. It will look for the wherever it finishes the slash and character. And not only reading the record wise, and also it forms the key value pairs. What is the key here in this text file? What is the key in this text file? What is the key in this text file? Offset. What is offset? Guys, what is offset? So what is the
Starting and ending dates.
where it is started? It is started with a 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, including comma, including everything, guys, including each and every character. 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on. Let's assume that is a 15. So 0 will start with a 15. The next line will start with a 16. Next line will start with a 16. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and so on. This ends with a, let's assume the 30. So next lines will start with the 31. So let's say this line has another 30 characters, and next line will start with the 62. This is the offset. This is offset, right? If it is a text file, it will consider a key as offset, value as complete line, value as complete line, value as complete line. Understand? If it is a text file, if it is a text input format, your key will be offset, value will be line. Is this clear? It is offset, I know. So what type of it is? Number type. It is a number type, and it is a text type, string type. It is a text type. Yes or no, guys? Do you understand this point?
Yes.
Anila, Akash, Devashish, Masood and Raghu.
Yes, understood.
This understood, everyone?
Yes.
Yes, Ravi.
Sunil, Surendra. Guys, if you guys really have a doubt, don't hesitate to ask me. I'm very much okay to explain one more time from the basic. To don't don't be a doubtful. If you have any small doubt also, please ask me. Anila.
Understood, Ravi.
Okay, others? Why I'm asking everyone individually, because it's very much important. If you understand the basic things, how it is happening, going forward it will be very easy. Srikanth, Sulba, Sunil.
Understood. Yes.
It's a very simple, guys. Let me put in a very high level in easy words. If you have a text file, the text file will be divided into key value pairs. Not on text file, any input, guys. If you give any input to Mapreduce, Mapreduce understands the key and value, because if you look at the code, if you look at the code, mapper code, if you look at the mapper code, let me show you a source code. Let me show you a source code. If you look at the mapper code, look at here, it is taking the key in, value in. It will gives you key out, value out. Don't worry, who are not from the Java background, why they have written at the class level and what is this and all, don't worry, it is generics. It is generic. It means your mapper is expecting this value, any type of value. It can be any type of value. If you're passing one time as a string or one time as an integer, it will consider inside, it will take as integer same type only. It's a kind of generic. It is not a fixed data type. Whatever the data type you like, you can pass it. It's kind of generics. If anyone knows about the C, there is something called templates. The same kind of here also. Okay, not to worry about it. And you have for that this map context object. The context object you just leave it, and you have something map method. We need to mainly concentrate your class. You need to class your class is. I'll tell you what is the context also. It's not a problem. Mapper. Your mapper phase is expecting key value in value in, and I will give you as output key output value output. Okay, come down. Let's just come down. Map method. There is a method, is a map method, right? So which is there in the mapper class. There is something called map method which is there in the mapper class. So that is also expecting key in value in. That's also expecting key in and value in. Whatever the process you do in between, you do whatever the process. That's up to you. That's your logic. You have to write your own logic, right? Based on the requirement, you will write your logic. Then what it will do? The final output context.write means it's writing the output. Where it is writing, it will writing into a buffer memory. From the buffer memory, it will go to a local hard disk. We will see that. Okay, it means your mapper is emitting output. It's not returning output. Its return type is void. It is not returning anything. It is just emitting, or it's writing into file. Let's assume that it's, as of now, it is writing into your local hard disk. Okay, so it is writing output in the form of key, comma value. This point is clear. Your Mapreduce framework is designed such a way that your map will take a key value and gives you a key value. This point is clear. This point is clear, everyone.
Yes, Veera.
Yeah.
Yes, Veera.
So I will explain what is the setup method, what is the cleanup method, what is the cleanup method. I'll explain these things because those are also important. I'll explain, but for time being, just concentrate on the map method and reduce method. So now let's go to reducer class. Let's go to reducer class. Let's go to reducer class. Okay, now here your reducer class also looks similar to your mapper class. It is also expecting key in, value in, and it's giving output as a key out value out. The final output also, guys, the final output also, it will be in the form of key value pairs. It will be in the form of key value pairs. Let's look at, go to a reduce method. Let's look at there. Let's look at the reduce method. Let's look at your reduce method. Your reduce method also is expecting key value, and it's also giving a final output as key value. If you see this one, your reduce method going traversing through or iterating through your values. Why? Because your k2, which is a value, is whatever the input you are giving to a reducer, your reduce method, whatever the input you are giving to a reduce method. Key is a normal single key only, but value is not a single value. It is a collection of values. Why? Because before going to reducer, there is something called shorten shuffle phase. Shorten shuffle phase. With the same key, there may be multiple outputs from the mapper. For the same key, registrations. If you remember what our example, for the registration, for the our mobiles, for mapper 1 is giving the mobiles are 50. Mapper 2 is giving mobiles of 20. Mapper 3 is giving mobiles are 40. Now key is a mobile. Values are 50, 20, 40. Right? It's a collection of group of values. So that's why it should traverse through each value. That's why it should traverse through each value. That is the reason it is iterable of values. It is a iterable of values. Iterable means it's a collection of values. It can be array list, it can be whatever it is, list or set, whatever it is. It's a collection of values. Now clear? Very high level. Your map method will take key value pair and gives you key value pair. Your reduce method will take key value pair and gives the key value pair. Yeah. Now we'll try to understand who will give the key value pair, How will they will give the key value pair? We will understand. Okay, let's go here in our map method. Let's go back to map method. I hope everyone understand the mapper class and map method, and everyone understand the reduce and reduce method. If you guys have any doubt, please ask me. No doubts. Good. So let's look at here. The mapper, there is something called run method. There is something called run method. This run method, has, like, there is something called setup method is calling before calling your main map method. There is a setup method calls, and after mapper finishes, cleanup method calls. We'll talk about this very detailedly, not to worry. So you set up, only one thing you keep in mind, you set up and the cleanup will execute only once in a life of mapper. Only once in a life of mapper. If you have a 10 mappers, let me put it here. If we have a here, for this two mappers are launching. For this two mappers are launching. Map 1 and map 2 is launching for this input, right? Setup method will execute only once. Setup method execute only once. Here, once for this mapper. Once for this, once for that. But here map method, your map method will execute how many number of lines are there in this split. How many number of lines are there? 1 second. One second, yes. How many lines are there here in this plate? So let's assume that here only 2 lines are there. So your map method will execute twice. It will work only once in the life complete. This will work for twice or thrice, is based on the numbers. Okay, based on the number of lines. Your cleanup method is there. It also executes only once. Let's assume that split 2 has one more line. So here your map method in the map 2, it will execute 3 times, or based on the number of lines. Based on the number of lines or number of records. Based on number of records in split. Based on the number of records in the split, those many times your map method will execute. But your cleanup method will execute only once. Cleanup will execute only once. This is how it will work. Okay, that's what it's showing here. So now your map method is getting called inside the while loop. The while loop loops on your input split. Let's say if I have 100 records in my input split. The loop will do 100 times. The loop will go through 100 times. First loop, first record. Second loop, second record. Third loop, third record, and so on, 100 times. So 100, if I have my input split has 100 records, my map method will execute 100 times. If my input split has 1,000 records, 1,000 times my map method will execute. If my map method is my input split has 10,000 or 1 million records, your map method will execute 1 million times. But your setup will be only once. Your cleanup will be only once. If anyone has an experience, or if anyone have idea of the servlets, your init method will call only one time of life of your servlet, and your destroy method also will call only one time of your servlet life of the servlet. But your service method will keep calling for how many requests comes, those many times it will call. But here the same way here also your map method will execute how many input splits are there, how many records are there in the input split, how many records are there in the input split. Those many times it will execute. Exactly similar to your servlets, guys. If you guys can able to understand the servlet, man, whoever is not understand, don't worry, don't go ahead and read it. In the servlet also there will be 3 methods. Life of a servlet, it's called life of a servlet. Here also is life of a mapper. The life of a servlet will start with init method and ends with the destroy method in between the service method. In the life of servlet, life will start with initialization, service, destroy. Here also life of your mapper start with the setup method, setting up, like you want to initialize something. Before calling your map method, you want to do some initializations, assignments. Initialization means assignments the values, creating some variables, creating some objects. The type of we want to do, we will do in the setup method. Your life of your mapper will start with the setup method. It will do a service, or it will process the data in the map method. And ends with a cleanup method. Cleanup method is meant for cleaning the resources. Suppose you have opened some file, or suppose you have created some object, you want to nullify that object, you will do in the cleanup. So your map method will be keep calling in the loop. What is this loop and what base the loop will work? The loop will work based on number of records in a input split. Suppose if you have 1 million records in the input split, your map method will call 1 million times. Okay, understand? I hope everyone understand. You guys can easily understand from these comments. Let me show you the comments of each and every method it has. It's a context, not to worry about the context. I'll tell you, this context has a configuration, record reader, record writer, output committer, and your context has everything. Status, input split, everything will be having a context. It's like a global object. Sorry, something is calling. It is like a global object. Your context is like a global object. Everything will be available in the in this context object. Whatever is required for your job, everything will be available here. So by using context object only we'll be writing, by using context object only we'll be reading, we will be doing that. Okay, forget about the context. See here, setup method called once at the beginning of the task. Your map task, whenever your map task starts, it will call beginning of that. That's it, only once, done. Only once, done. Map method called once for each key value pair in the input split. In the input split, it will not be always one key value pair, no. The input split will be having a millions of files, a millions of lines, or hundreds of lines in the input split. For each key value pair, it means for each record it will call once. For each record it will call once. And let's go to cleanup method. Cleanup method also called once at the end of the task. Your task, before completing your task, completing means after completing your map method, cleanup method will be called only once. I hope everyone is clear about this. Okay, now let's look at the reducer part. It's also same. Setup method. It also has this context, guys. It also maintains the same context. It will be having a configuration. It will be having a iterator, counters, output committer. All this information will be there. But here you don't need the input split. You don't need the record reader, because reducer works on output of input. So reducer works on the output of the input. That's why. Okay. So now here setup method will call only once at the starting of the task. And your reduce method, it calls for each key. This method is called once for each key. Most applications will define their reducer class by overriding this method. So we have to override this method. Even map method also we have to override in our code. And cleanup method, it works only once. Here also we have a run method. This run method will call by whom? Framework. Then setup method call once, and reduce method also will be there in where? Number of key value pairs, number of outputs. After short and shuffling, how many keys will come? Let's say mapper 1 is given some output, mapper 2 is given some output. It will be mixed, it will be grouped, and it will be sorted based on the keys. So if I have 100 keys, your reduce method will call 100 times. If I have 100 keys, your reduce method will call 100 times. Right? This is about your mapper and reducer. So So tomorrow we will see how the keys are getting key in, key value, how are getting calculated. We will see tomorrow. So I want you guys to be ready with the setup by tomorrow. So please